Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 80. Big Billy is back. Surely everything in England rugby is fine. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. New episode as promised. Of course, I'm joined by Dan in the room this time. Dan.
I know. I've had a trip to England Rugby Pod HQ, so it's good to be in the room together. The initial plan was obviously for us to be in the same room together so we could be interviewing the pod doc. Unfortunately, the pod doc apparently has prioritised patients over us, which is
crazy.
It just seems a bit ridiculous, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's you can't get the staff these days.
But never mind, we will have the pod doc on soon. So this week, I think we mentioned that concussion was something we wanted to bring up. Obviously, I think it makes sense if we wait till we have the audience with the pod doc, who will speak about this a lot more knowledgeably than we will.
Yeah, well, we've obviously got our opinions, and that's great. But yeah, we want someone who can add a little bit of credibility to either to support our arguments or to completely kind of destroy them and shut us up.
Which I suspect is probably the route he's going.
Absolutely.
However, we have got quite a few bits I think that are worth covering today. Should we start on a positive? And I mean a positive from a perspective of a career. It's always sad when someone retires, but it's great that she's retired on her own terms. So an absolute legend of England rugby, Danielle Waterman. She has retired from international rugby. She retires with over 15 years playing for England, 82 caps, 47 tries, which is a hell of a return. She took part in 4 World Cups and was a World Cup winner in 2014. So, Danielle, if you're listening, if this gets you, congratulations on an excellent career. And I know you're carrying on playing rugby sort of at the top level from a club perspective. But, yeah, congratulations on an excellent England career.
Well said.
Thank you very much.
Well said.
So she was the one. I don't know if you remember when we were listening to the Women's World Cup, and she was the one where we both said she shouldn't be playing in the England women's team. She should actually be on the Lions tour. I remember her being an absolute legend. She just cut open defences. So it'll be a shame from England women's rugby to lose her, but obviously you know it's great that. She's had such a long career and she can still carry on playing rugby, and you know we wish her the best in her next steps, whatever they may be.
Without wanting to cast any kind of shadow over any of this, and I might be completely wrong because they may have changed the rules, but last time we were talking about women's rugby, we were obviously talking about the fact that it was losing its professional status.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's still the case.
Yeah, so there was an article the other day where they were saying that sooner rather than later, the women should start getting paid at club level, which is great. So I actually don't know what happened. So I know that the England women's 15s team lost its sort of professional status or lost getting paid for the 15 because they were paying professionals for the 7s for the Commonwealth Games, which has obviously now happened. So now that the Commonwealth Games has been and gone, I actually don't know what the scenario is. It's probably worth looking into to see, are they now going to start paying the 15s team again? Are they now going to
because I'm assuming that someone like Danielle's probably getting paid by club.
No, they're not getting paid at the moment, actually.
Oh, really?
The clubs aren't paying their players at the moment. So they're saying hopefully sooner rather than later they're going to start paying them, but at the moment, I don't think it's sustainable for the clubs to be able to pay their players. I mean, it's only the first season of this league. So very soon, and rightly so, hopefully the women will start getting paid and
we'll see more from the international stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So, moving on to sort of the men's side of the game, it looks like we've got our top 4 in the Premiership, which are Exeter and Saracens, who are both guaranteed home games. Exeter.
No major surprises in either of those.
Well, I also can't see anyone else winning it but them at the moment. No. But the other 2 who are guaranteed the playoff spot are Newcastle and Wasps. It's just a case of them deciding who's 3rd, who's 4th.
Yeah.
Which we'll decide this weekend. Newcastle, great job.
They haven't got enough in the tank, have they?
I just It's hard to know. So at the moment they're third. So let's say it finishes as is. They're away to Saracens at Allianz Park. It's a big arse. They're a good team and they've had a brilliant season. And it's great. It's sort of great for rugby that they come up. It's almost a kind of extra story with, they've got a lot of players who help them get promoted.
Yeah.
And they're moving forward. Dean Richards done a great job.
I could see Wasps doing Exeter. Not that I think they will, but that far more than Newcastle doing Sarries.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think the Wasps Exeter game. In some ways, it would be quite. I like Exeter, and I'd love to see them go all the way again. But in some ways, it's Haskell's last season with Wasps.
Yeah.
We're both massive fans of James. It would be quite nice to see him go out with a bang, and what better way to do it than to. I mean, obviously beating Exeter only gets you halfway there, but they've got what it takes to do it. I think both the other sides have got more in the tank. And
Wasps need to shore up their defence. In attack, they can be brilliant. But Haskell, you say go out with a bang. Well, according to him, that's not allowed in professional rugby these days. He's been fairly vocal, hasn't he?
Yes. What did he say? Rugby's gone soft or
pathetic. I think he was the word he used.
Pathetic sport, and he feels like he's bowing out at the right time. I mean, is this him saying, I'm done? Like, I know that we know he's not, and he's looking elsewhere. But does it maybe?
It was a weird It was a weird way to phrase it, wasn't it? Because from what we know, and as far as I'm aware, it's still 100% the case. He fully intends on playing top Premier League rugby, Premiership rugby next season. Yeah, for the World Cup. But
it definitely left a kind of impression where I was thinking, has Eddie Jones said something to him? Has he maybe said, you don't have an England career anymore, and he's starting to think, what am I doing? I'm at a certain age, and or is it just that he was fired up at the end of the game and he was purely talking about bowing out of the Wasps side?
I don't know, because the way he phrased it did make me wonder, because also we haven't heard what club he's going to, but then we haven't with Cipriani either. Mm-hmm. Although there are the rumours with Cipriani going to Bath, which could be interesting. So firstly, from a Bath perspective, it's kind of weird because they've got Freddie Burns and they've got Reece Priestland. So they've got two top quality 10s. For me, Danny Cipriani actually now more than ever needs to find a club where he's going to be playing week in, week out. Because, mate, I mentioned this to you earlier, George Ford's form at the weekend this season, it's not been great. And quite frankly, the weekend he was an absolute pussy. Like, his defence was awful, which is a shame because... And we keep saying, in attack, but that's not good enough at international rugby.
Game. You still have to be able to do everything.
I mean, Danny Cipriani's no Johnny, but in defence. But less and less do you hear complaints about Danny Cipriani's defence, whereas George Ford's defence is coming massively under the limelight, and it's a worry.
I mean, we've had this conversation on many occasions. We'll have it on many more, I'm sure. But is looking for a replacement for George Ford the solution if in fact his form continues to dip or remains low? Or do we have his replacement right now and currently playing 12 in Owen Farrell?
I don't know, mate.
Do we have? I feel like we have more options to put together combinations in the centres than we do to bring in a new fly half.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, the only reason from a personal level, I'm hesitant is because I like seeing that 10-12 combo with the two ball players or whatever.
I mean, not that you couldn't do that still.
Yeah.
There's no reason why just because you do that you have to then bring in a Tuolangi at 12, which you may well do. But you could replace Farrell at 12 and move Farrell to 10 rather than necessarily change it up completely.
No, absolutely. And the reality is, like, Eddie Jones doesn't like Danny Cipriani. He can say what he wants, but clearly he doesn't.
Well, you think.
He's just Eddie Jones. I'm not quoting him because I haven't spoken to the man, but I'm pretty sure every night he goes home and says to his wife, Danny Cipriani's a bellend. But for some reason, he's not his cup of tea. He's not going to pick him, which is a shame because Danny Cipriani, to me, is just such... I love watching that guy play. I just think he's so awesome to watch play. He's a brilliant player. And And actually, as you know, I always take the mickey saying he's a bit of a bit and a bit of a tool, but I only say that based upon no knowledge. And by all accounts, he's not at all. By all accounts, he's actually a really good bloke. But
I think he just has to keep, I think the England thing, if there's still an opportunity, I think he needs to forget about it, and if it happens, it happens. And as you say, he needs that club where he gets to play regular rugby, and then he needs to go out and he needs to perform. And I think form speaks volumes, particularly in a position like number 10.
Yeah.
You can talk about back row players who are in form who aren't being selected, and everyone's going, why the hell not? But I think if you're a number 10 who's absolutely bossing it, it's very difficult to be ignored.
It's so difficult, but he has been bossing it for a little while, Cipriani, especially in attack. But maybe that's also the fact that Wasps' attacking form is just unreal. They are the best attacking team in the Premiership, and they're a joy to watch. To be frank, I really enjoy watching Wasps play when they're on fire. But this is going to be interesting. So we've actually said when we know the top 4, we'll pick who we think our squad is for the England match. What we're going to do, we're going to wait till next week for this because, firstly, a week tomorrow, the England squad's announced.
Today.
I thought it was a week Thursday.
Yeah, that's today.
A week today? Because we record and go live in real time, of course. No, a week today, the squad is announced. Oh, silly me and my calendar. So a week today, the squad's announced. So next week, when we are doing our pod, we will mention who we think will be on that tour, and we'll also know, not that this makes any difference at this stage, to be honest, but we'll know exactly who the top, we know who the top 4 are, we know what position they'll finish. Again, that makes no difference whatsoever. But on that, I have no idea how they're going to pick, because I'm hearing quite a few professionals now saying, based on England's form, you have to take the main players, you have to take the Farrells, you have to take that. I mean, I disagree, but, these guys clearly know a bit more than I do about it all, so...
I mean, are they talking about, based on form and, about going out there and getting results?
Yeah, they're talking about England rugby form rather than individual form.
But what I mean is that they're talking about if you want to win in South Africa, then you need to take the best players.
No, I think it's more along the lines of, England rugby have had whatever you want to call it. They've had a dip. They've had a
we called wobble. It. We said, pre Six Nations, when the assumption was that England were going to win the Six Nations, possibly even do another Grand Slam.
Yeah.
This tour would be another testing ground.
Yeah.
And we said, given the results of the Six Nations, it's going to be very difficult to leave the Lions behind. To rest these guys. And it's a catch-22 because, as you've pointed out on numerous occasions, these guys are exhausted. I think one of the points you were planning to make is to do with Sam Underhill, who is officially exhausted as a result of the work he's been doing with England. So there are guys that need to be rested, but England also needs to know where the hell it's going, and a big part of that is having the key guys. I still think you can risk results to say, look, there are certain people, Owen Farrell, Maro Itoje, who you don't need to see prove themselves.
So my argument is Owen Farrell might need to go. And I know I'm massively backtracking here. Because Dylan Hartley's out.
Yeah, you need a leader.
We need a leader. And Dylan Hartley is long from guaranteed a place coming up to the World Cup, especially with, the forms of likes of Luke Cowan-Dickey. If him and Jamie George go out there and nail it, possibly Dylan Hartley's might struggle, and the form of Northampton, Dylan Hartley might struggle to be in the squad. So then, is Owen Farrell the next captain? At the moment, I don't really see another option.
I mean, Billy 12 Trees?
Billy T could definitely be in with a shout.
But no, joking aside, I mean, Mako, I think, is the leader in the forwards. Is he a possible captain? We've both said not sure.
Is Mako the leader in the forwards?
I think so. I think he certainly was possible. Oh? Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. No, I don't see Mako as captain. I keep saying Launchbury. Why does no one listen to me?
I think because you can again you end up with the same problem as you have with Hartley, which is he guaranteed a position? And that's not to take anything away from how good Launchbury is, but we know there are 3 or 4 guys competing for the second row spots. And
speaking of which, George Cruz is out for tour now as well, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
not that that changes for the World Cup.
Two of the 4 are out. Yeah, so again, do you take a Toje, or do you say actually this is an opportunity to blood a few Nick Isekwe, people like that?
Yeah, I don't
say
take
people
a
like
Toje.
that. There's a few. If you're not taking a Toje either, then or do you take someone like a Toje and tell him to go and look, you're young, you can hack it better than some of the older boys. Go out there, and also we're going to throw captaincy on your shoulders. We want to see how you cope.
I don't know. But either way, let's wait. Let's wait for next week where we'll.
We're going to predict. We're going to have to predict the captain as well, though. So we're going to do that part.
We'll have to go through it because. But like you say, I mean, still, I said let's wait, but still on this point, like you were saying about Sam Underhill, Toby Boofy, my old coach at the mighty East Grinstead, he has said, now the bar forwards coach obviously, he has said Sam Underhill is broken from the last England training camp. They can't take him. He's not even back fully training with Bath yet. Whether Eddie Jones will do what he wants to do. Eddie Jones isn't going to do it based on that. But that's the point. If he is broken from that, you do need these guys to rest. If these England camps are going to be that brutal, but it has that effect on the players, if you are, after a long season, taking the guys who've come off a full season plus a Lions tour, it could be devastating.
Yeah. So, how long is an England camp?
So
long weekend?
Well, it massively varies, doesn't it? Like a Six Nations. So you got to look like the Six Nations. You've got to look. That's over a space of sort of 7 odd weeks, isn't it?
Oh no, but this is England. When I mean like a training camp.
Well, so a training. If they do a specific training camp, it tends to be 3-4 days.
Yeah, I'm reading a lot of stuff where it's sort of saying, and Sam Underhill's a prime example. He came back broken from an England training camp. He needs to be rested, and I'm thinking.
He's referring to the Six Nations as a whole.
Is he though?
Yeah.
Or is he referring to a training camp and he's saying that Eddie Jones pushes them too hard in training?
No, he's saying he's broken after the last England training camp. The last time Sam Underhill was with England was at the Six Nations. So I don't think he's saying he's broken from a January training camp.
I think he is. I think he's saying those 3 days have broken him.
Absolutely.
And I'm just thinking, if 3 days is all it takes, then the problems are slightly bigger.
Yeah, the problems are slightly bigger. I mean, it's something that does need to be looked at because these guys are. Yes, I agree. You need to be the fittest team in the world. I can't believe rugby still hasn't seemed to cotton on to this. Like when we won the World Cup 2003, the key objective: make sure we're the fittest in the world. New Zealand always do that. Want to be the fittest team in the world.
Yep.
Yes, we have to be the fittest team in the world. Being the fittest team in the world doesn't necessarily mean going and doing judo camps where prison yard rules are put in place and it's just beat the crap out of each other. It can be, there's ways to go about it, but these camps, and I think we can almost say with definite, take their tolls on the player. I mean, we said during the Six Nations loads, they look tired.
Yeah,
they did look tired. These camps are brutal. The thing about scrumming with Georgia, and everyone's like, yeah, that sounds a good idea, but a lot of the professionals were like, what? Why are you doing that? Like, these guys are knackered, beaten up after a game, and then you've got a scrum where everyone is, let's face it, you're not holding back. And, while the other teams, so you look at the Irish players and how well they're playing.
Sitting in baths and, spa days.
Yeah, exactly, out in the town.
And then relying on Johnny Sexton to drop a 45-metre drop goal to win a game against France in the opening match.
That's a hell of a drop goal. But Ireland as a whole, you look at club rugby, the Irish teams.
I just want to quickly go back to that game because let's not forget that, yes, they won the game and obviously they went on to do the Grand Slam, including beating us. But Johnny Sexton kicked that goal because Ireland were going nowhere.
Yeah.
For 20 minutes, 15 minutes, when they were desperately trying to get in position to take, they were trying to find a position to take that drop goal and they couldn't do it. And in the end, it took a moment of genius from one guy. And maybe that's what all the hard work comes down to. It's for when you're in those games in a vital scenario and having the ability to kind of grind out that win and make those yards, those vital yards, when you're exhausted, when the attrition is kicking in, and Ireland couldn't do it.
Well, I mean, they did in the end.
They did, and fair play to them. But it was an individual. It was one guy out of 15. It wasn't a team effort. And if had they started 10 metres further back, I don't think they'd have ever got to that point where he was in range.
No, I agree. That crossfield kick still blows my mind. How he did that. But
and what went through his head to think this is a good idea? It worked out, so it's an easy one. But it's like your classic kick for the corner, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it goes wrong, if you don't score the try, everyone's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
But when it works, even though it was the wrong call, everyone thinks it's a genius decision. I'm
trying to think of an incident where it didn't work, where you kicked for the corner. Chris Robshaw, 2015 World Cup versus Wales. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. So I'm not saying that it's wrong to have a brutal training camp, and yes, it might be needed. What I'm saying is, they're humans. They need recovery time. You can't just. Well, Johnny's not, but the others are. But
Samara.
Samaro, I didn't think was human, but this season I think there might be a human element to him. Still awesome, but
part man, part machine.
Exactly, half. But you still need if it's just non-stop and they're not getting the time to fully recover, like be it mentally, be it physically. That's when I think you need to look at it. I'm by no means saying you can't have these absolutely insane training camps where you push them to the limits. Because like you say, in a game, the last few minutes, sometimes that's the sort of money in the bank that you can rely on. But if that's all you're doing and then you're just turning up and you're absolutely exhausted, does that add value?
I don't disagree. Another question I got for you then is it England that's putting this sort of additional pressure on these players, or do the clubs have a responsibility to be resting their players? Because the clubs are the ones that are wanting them to play week in, week out throughout the season.
The clubs pay them. The clubs are
England.
England pay them. England pay the people who play.
Yeah,
and it's an honour to represent. No, the clubs
quite a lot of money.
I actually think the clubs. I think the clubs do it fairly well. I think the clubs do rest their players. But from a club perspective, you've got to look at it. And like Saracens have a good rotation system, but if you're the CEO of Saracens, whose name escapes me, you're thinking, I pay this guy £600,000-700,000 a year. If I rest him, great, he might be good. But also, to pay that money, the reason I pay these guys so much money is so we bring in big crowds. Mm-hmm. You bring in the bigger crowds by playing your star players. People are more interested to go and see. So, from a club's perspective, that commercial aspect does have to come into it. I truly believe England need to sit down with the clubs and come to some sort of agreement. I'm not saying do it exactly like Wales, exactly like Ireland, but England can say whatever. Like Wales, I think it's 60-40. I mean, I can't remember which one. I think actually Wales pay 60% of the fees and the clubs pay 40%. It could be the other way round.
It's crazy that England don't do this.
I think they should.
How much money they've got.
Yeah, and I truly believe now's the time they can sit down with the clubs and say, look, do you know what? Let's come to this agreement, and as a result, England can manage the players, not fully, because the clubs are still playing, but a lot more, so they can manage their rest periods a lot more. And it takes the financial burden off the clubs a bit more as well, which I think is really important. Do I think it'll happen? I don't know. The RFU I know very little about, actually, the English RFU.
You have to think, we were having this conversation 2 years ago. It wasn't nearly as extreme as it is now. It seems to be just becoming more and more and more of a problem.
Yeah.
There is going to come a point where something is going to snap, figuratively, and surely at that point there will be no choice. This will be the solution.
Yeah, but we want this.
Unless someone comes up with something new that we haven't thought of, and which is fair enough. I'd love to hear some ideas, and we'll when we discuss the concussion stuff, because it's kind of leads in. It's part of the same debate, really. We'll talk about things that we think we can do, and by that I mean we'll put pressure on the pod doc to come up with a solution that no one else has yet been able to come up with.
It's about time he did something for us,
and expect him to deliver. But yeah, it's clearly something is needed.
It is needed. The worry now is these conversations clearly aren't going to happen and aren't going to happen before 2019. So now I think it's the time, and I'm sure England can sit down and still chat with the clubs, England coaches with the clubs, and I know they do have these conversations, and they still can discuss about player welfare is obviously key, and I don't think anybody is. I'm not at all accusing England or clubs, because I don't think anyone's that bad with regards to them neglecting player welfare purposely. But it's not just about player welfare from injury; it's sort of a mental side as well. Just they need to have a chance in saying, actually, these guys do need a bit of time off. There's a World Cup. A World Cup's massive. But you can't just go flat out from the last World Cup to the next one 4 years straight, because you're trying to build this ultimate team. You still need to say to the guys at some point, do you know what? Have a full summer off. Go away with your mates. Go away with your family. Have a great time. Just take rugby off the agenda. Just don't have rugby as your be-all and end-all in your life. I mean, everyone needs that. Like in whatever form of work you do, you need that sometimes, where you can just completely forget it, go away and refresh. And I truly believe this is where England are falling short compared to our counterparts. And I'm talking more Northern Hemisphere here, especially when you look at the Irish. I mean, I think the Irish are doing this so well at the moment, and look at the rewards it's coming up with.
Yeah. I mean, look, the more I think about it, and as you said, we're going to put our predictions together for next week. But I think you do. I think you do say, do you know what? Half the English Lions are injured anyway.
Yeah.
The ones that aren't, I think you just say, look, we're resting our Lions, and yeah, it's going to leave gaps, and it's going to force us to try out some things we maybe wouldn't have tried out. And if captaincy is one of them, great. We've talked so much about how England lack leadership, so what better way to find out where it exists than to say, look, we're not bringing any of our leaders with us, so someone's going to have to step up.
I'm with you, boss. I'm with you. I still like this tour in my head. I still like this tour as not a testing ground, but a proving ground.
I think it's become that because of situations out of Eddie or anyone else's control. I think, the reality is it's clear that there are guys that he would love to take who are a big part of the England setup who need to rest.
Yeah.
That's the problem with doing this on a Lions year, and so I think it's that it's been forced, and yes, it's not ideal the year before a World Cup, but it is what it is, and actually the autumn internationals are far more important.
They're taking on a massive place
with
now,
New Zealand, So I think go out there. It's not like you say. It's a proving ground, not a testing ground. It's not about trying out unknowns who have never been seen before and going, go on, you're a youngster, put on an England shirt and go and see what you can do. This is about saying, look, there's a whole load of guys with huge amounts of talent who haven't really been given a shot because there are perhaps better players in those positions, but now you've got an opportunity to prove that maybe you're better. This is your chance to see what you can do with it.
But that's the key. I think what you're saying, that's the key. And we said this the other week. That's great, but what we don't want and what we can't have is players going out there to get experience being in an England camp. You have to, if you're a player going out there, you have to be a possibility for a World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spot. But let's look at this actually from a positive side for a second. So you were saying about Ireland, about Johnny said, you have to dig deep in those games where nothing's going on. You have to dig deep. You have to come together as a team, not give away penalties, which England just did ridiculously in the Six Nations at times. Actually, could this be exactly the sort of adversity that they need now? They finished fifth in the Six Nations. Yeah. That still blows my mind and pisses me off. But they finished fifth. They're now going to South Africa, which at one point seemed an easy tour, but because of what South Africa are doing,
and because of what's happening over here, with England.
Yeah, South Africa are now getting a strong team out. Likely, we don't know, but South Africa have the ability to get out a very good team with great players on form. So South Africa have become a lot more tricky prospects, even with the full England contingency. So now it's like, right, guys, we're really up against it. Plus our task ahead's got tougher. is this the adversity that they need? Is this the adversity they need to come through to give them that mental strength to win a World Cup?
I mean, look, this is where leaders are going to be born, isn't it? And at the end of the day, Eddie Jones has said there aren't enough of them in the England setup, and this is the way where you find them.
You're right, leaders are going to be born. very, very profound.
You can take that little sound bite.
I will use it. Use it next time I'm in the office. In this meeting, leaders are going to be born. Everyone will be like, well, what are you doing, Dan? You have a tea and coffee, boy. Get out. But it's...
But when you leave, they'll say, but he's right.
He's right. Today is the day.
Exactly.
Leaders will be born. But yeah, it's like...
Go on, deny it. As much as you want to.
Without being to articulate it as well. Leaders will be born. You're such a bad. Okay, you are kind of right. I think your sentiment is half right. Like, yes, people might need to step up and take on a bit more responsibility. Whether this is the new film of 300, I'm not quite sure, but good for you.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
Ready your breakfast and anyway. Should we move on?
Yes, yeah. Let's. I wanted to chat a bit about, and I say chat a bit, looking at the England game as a whole. What the hell is going on with Quins, man? And the reason I bring that up is because they have an England contingent in it. Same with Northampton. Is that anything to do with England rugby, like England elite players?
No.
It's to do with it with regards to they have players, but
I don't think it's the England players within the Quins setup that are the problem. So I don't think you've got these elite players who are too tired and therefore they're not doing a job for club and therefore club's struggling. I think I don't know the reasons behind it, but I think the club is going through a tough time. Was the wrong person in charge? I mean, he's gone now, or he's leaving.
Yeah.
Quite possibly bringing someone else in will change things up, and it's very difficult, isn't it? Because you look at that side. Danny Kerr, Joe Marler, Kyle Sinclair,
Chris Robshaw, Mike Brown.
It's not even just that they're England players. Within that you've got leaders.
Leaders were born.
The leaders were born, exactly. But you have Danny Kerr, Chris Robshaw, Mike Brown have all been captains or vice captains of England.
Yeah.
Joe Marler will never be a captain again of anyone ever, but he's there.
Yeah.
Carl Sinclair's probably going down a similar route, but he's a Lion.
Yeah. And they're good players. They're still good players.
Yeah, and that's not to take away from the rest of the squad. They have a strong side on paper. So I don't know is the answer.
So I think I'm probably looking at this in a wider, because you look at Northampton. There's something going on there. I mean, I'm going to start using a few classic cliches myself, I think. But you look at sort of the Exeters. You look at Newcastle. They are better than what they should be on
Born
paper.
Leaders.
They are more than the sum of their parts. Whereas
that's nice.
Whereas Quins are less than the sum of their parts, a lot less. So are Northampton, in theory. Yeah. They've both got some really good players, and a lot of this I think is down to mental attitude. I know Danny Kerr said with Quins a change is needed, like to shake things up. Not necessarily. I don't know. I have no idea about what's going on there, but it's not necessarily saying the coaching has been bad, but it's maybe the same message just year after year, and there's something not quite resonating. Is the danger, and it's a question I've asked before, and I want to ask you again, because I'm starting to get more and more worried about it. Is the danger that these sort of attitudes that are going on, is there a danger of this leaking into the elite England team, England squad?
How do we answer that question without knowing what the problem is? I mean, this is for me. This is the issue. Like something's not right. We're not quite sure what it is. It doesn't make a lot of sense. As I said before, I don't think it's the elite players that are creating whatever the problem is. But that, again, that's a bit of a wild statement because we know what the problem is. So
yeah, it is tough, and I'm by no means saying it's these players' fault, because I don't for a second believe that. But it's just worrying that there clearly is. This clearly isn't just a physical capability issue.
No,
There clearly is the mental sort of issue going on, that be it with regards to how motivated are they to go out there and play their best. I mean, Quins against Worcester, it was just woeful. I mean, I was a little bit embarrassed for them at times, taking nothing away from Worcester, but Quins didn't want it. It was like I said about George Ford, and I am a George Ford fan, but he just didn't want it. And Leicester had everything to play for as well.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed in that. And you look at Leicester, because they made some big signings, like Johnny May, George Ford, for the first time in 14 years or whatever it is. But they've missed out on a top 4 spot. And it worries me that we've got elite England players involved in these types of scenario. And I'm not saying it's their fault.
But you know, George Ford,
Yeah.
you know, he's one of them. And, and he's one of the problems as well. So, it's not limited to the non-elite players. So it's not even like it's the elite player. You asked the question: is it going to leak into the elite setup? I don't think it. I think it's already there. If it's a thing that could, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's difficult because without knowing exactly what's going on. Is it just because it's a Lions year? You know, let's not forget that yes, the Lions went to New Zealand, but at the same time, the England players and those that were left, but also a whole load of others, they went on a tour of their own. So there's been a lot of rugby played outside of just the Lions.
Yeah.
So they've all had a pretty tough season.
Yeah, it's tough. I think again, and I keep using Ireland. I think that the thing that worries me, but again, this may be this is how they get through the adversity. You look at a lot of the Ireland team, the Ireland players. They're all coming from a really positive club environment to a really positive international environment. And you can tell. Whereas not all of the England team, because you've obviously got England players in Exeter and Saracens, but a lot of them. But there's still a worry that if you've got some England players who, let's face it, recently are coming from a really poor negative club environment to what's been recently a poor England environment.
Yep.
And are these players, are these for guys, like regardless of Lions, are these for guys who maybe need the summer off away from rugby?
Yeah, I mean, but you take Dylan Hartley as an example. For a long time, he was coming from a poor club environment to a very strong international environment. And Eddie Jones was one of the first to come out and say, I'm not interested in what he's doing for club. I'm interested in what he does for country, and what he does for country is excellent. So there clearly is an ability to separate the two. It doesn't look like it right now, following the Six Nations. I think resting is required over the summer, and I think this really needs to be re-looked at next season. I don't know. I think without being able to hit the nail on the head as to what the problem is, I don't think there is a solution.
So as a rugby fan, I can't wait for this tour because I want to watch England play rugby in South Africa in the summer. As a massive advocate of England winning the World Cup in 2019, still 100% believe that this summer would have been great for there to be no tour. But that was never going to happen. So it's a bit of a ridiculous comment because it wasn't going to happen because commercially they just wouldn't allow that. But if that had been the case, if England had been, I mean, the RFU wouldn't do it because you just lose too much money and you can't do it. But if they had have just said, you know what, there's not going to be tour, I think that would have been spot on for the England team. Everyone could have finished the season being like, right, we have a long time off to rest. I mean, the players still get that time. And then you go back to a full pre-season where you ease in. Because somebody said before, it's not that like those guys who go on the Lions tour, it's not that they come back and they don't get a rest. They do. But then they're pretty much coming into full-on rugby again. Yeah. Whereas if you finish end of the season, you've got the summer off. You then come back to pre-season where you gradually build up. It's not as if you're coming into, right, we've got a match in a couple of weeks.
We'll find out next week. But maybe Eddie Jones has a trick up his sleeve. Maybe it's the sort of thing that he is just going to turn around and just say, do you know what? I'm not taking anyone that's played before. I'm taking an entire squad of he's not going to do it, but
I bloody hope not. Yeah.
But you're saying you'd like to cancel the tour.
Not cancelling now. I'm saying if it was never going to happen, I think that would have been a good thing, but it was a ridiculous. That just wouldn't have been the case. But
is it of all the people that have led England and have presumably they have a contract that gives them final decision making about all squad members and selection? Is it Eddie Jones, if any, the guy, the coach that's going to say, I don't care? I agree with what everyone's saying, that these guys need resting. I'm not taking anyone that's a potential for my World Cup.
He could do. I don't for a second believe he will, because it needs to. There is that fine line. Now you've got those matches. England rugby as a whole needs to put in a positive performance for the sake of every part of England rugby, for the sake of getting England rugby back on track. Speaking of which,
I was going to say, we're being negative. It's time to get positive.
It is time to get positive. I believe we'll come back, and the most positive thing ever: Billy is back.
Boom.
Billy is back and playing, and he came off the bench. We'll see how he gets on in the next. Well, he's at least got 2 games, because they've got the last game for the season and a semi-final.
Yeah. Possibly
a few more. So, Billy, please, for the love of God, I know it's not your fault, but please don't get injured.
Yeah.
I know none of that's your fault.
Please, wrap him in cotton wool.
Well, literally, wrap him in cotton wool, because you are well classed.
I want him being stretchered off the pitch when he's not injured. Just to play it safe.
Yeah, I literally want him stretched on and off the pitch. As soon as he finishes playing, just claps on the floor, carry him into a changing room. Andy will go there himself and bath him, and and then stretch him home, put him to bed. Only when he's on the pitch is he allowed to move of his own accord.
It's good. It's a massive lift, I think, for England and for England fans.
I think it is.
And it seems crazy because a team is not made up of one person, but he is the kind of player that raises the game. We've said plenty of times before. Raises the games of the people around him, and I think it's just going to be good for morale. It's going to be good from a supporter's point of view, and he's one that, despite everything we've been saying, going backwards and forwards, he has to go to South Africa, right?
Yeah, I think so.
For him, in terms of he's had a lot of time off from injury, and I think for England, you could send Billy to South Africa and not worry too much about resting the others and the impact that it'll have. People will be happy to watch just because Billy's back.
Yeah. No, and I think Billy just adds, like you say, just so much positivity. You see Billy in your team, you've got a smile on your face. So yeah, that's maybe. I mean, is there anything else you particularly wanted to? The only other thing I wanted to mention is last week we mentioned about the American side, and we had some sort of feedback on that. Don again. Don, I'm not entirely sure your name. I think it's Schwarzenbach, but Don's been a long time listener, and we'll often send us a message, and we'll sort of reply on Facebook. But thanks very much for your comments, Don. As always, actually really appreciated. And some of the stuff you told us about the American side with regards to in the schools, it doesn't tend to be an either or. Like American football and rugby tend to take part within the same school. One might be fall and one might be spring. But Don, comments are awesome. Thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate comments from you, Don, from everyone else who gets in touch.
So, hold on. So you're saying that if you play American football in high school in the States, you could play rugby as well in the off season?
That's the impression I got. Yeah.
Do we think that there's probably, particularly at the elite level as far as high school sport goes, which we mentioned last week is pretty high, there's going to be guys who are told, no, you're not playing rugby. This is the off season. You need to rest. We've talked a lot about resting today.
Yeah.
And 2, they don't wear padding. They're far too tough. You can't go and play with. I mean,
Yeah,
but joking aside, though, is there a danger that actually some of these guys, these elite sportsmen who are playing American football, who would be awesome, if taught how to play rugby, are actually being told no, you're not allowed to play rugby because you're too important to the football side?
It could be the case. I mean, look, we'll be naive to say that American football won't take priority in there. So that could be the case, but it could also be the case that there's some guys playing American football who maybe haven't quite found their groove. Maybe, maybe they're playing in the wrong position, whatever it might be. Get on a rugby pitch where suddenly it just clicks a bit more. They've still got the athletic ability.
No doubt. But you're leaving the best guys. And this is the problem with trying to be, and we're making the assumption that they want to be a world class, top flight rugby side eventually, and
I'm sure they do.
I just don't think that happens until you create the mindset whereby this is considered a first choice, not I couldn't quite make it.
I mean, rugby's not first choice in England, is it? I mean, football will.
I don't know what football is, mate.
It's a sport. It's big amongst girls, actually.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know anyone who plays football who's not a girl, actually. But it's a lot bigger amongst them. But it's.
Is that one where they run around for 90 minutes pretending to be injured?
Yeah. That's
as opposed to rugby, where they run around for 80 minutes pretending not to be injured.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah. Polar opposites. But I mean, the American, it's a long-term plan, but it's moving in the right way, which is great news. It's great news for world rugby. I mean, we've seen it over the last.
I think probably if there are any American, Don or any other Americans that listen who have the correct reach, and you want to find out if there's any high schools that want us to come out and witness the rugby. Obviously, you'd have to put us up in a pretty nice hotel. Vegas is always nice. LA,
Vegas
cool.
High, Beverly Hills 90210.
Yeah, exactly. If you want us to come out, find us a nice hotel. Obviously, fly us out. We only fly first. We'd be happy to come and watch a few games and offer some comments.
Give our expertise advice on it. I'm sure we'd have massive value. But on that note, I think we're good. Anything else from you, brother?
No, I think that's probably a good place to call time. And as you mentioned earlier, next week we will be finally. We keep talking about it, but next week we will be making our predictions about the squad. Yeah, sort of 24 hours before it's officially announced, so we can then come back the following week and see how close we got. And obviously, somewhere in amongst all that, we will try to pin down the pod doc. If he's not too busy saving lives.
Yeah, God, I'm sick of his holy ever male attitude. But guys, thanks very much for listening to the England Rugby Pod, the place where leaders are born.
Correct. I mean, that actually, I'm changing the intro. Guys, thanks for listening. As Dan says, as always, rate us, review us on iTunes. We're on Acast. We're on Spotify. You'll know at least one of those because you're listening now. Share the love with friends and family, what have you. You can get in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook, and anything else you can think of that we've thought of at England Rugby Pod. The website www.englandrugbypod.com, or you can email us as someone did, and I apologise I've forgotten your name, but we did mention you last week, and that's englandrugbypod@gmail.com.
Andy, his name was.
There you go.
Yeah, and one final thing I just have to say, Miss Atkinberry, if you're listening, your elderflower cordial is absolutely amazing.
Odd. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, bye.